In the heart of a snowy forest, a large bear wandered onto a frozen road. Snowflakes swirled around as it sniffed the air, sensing something unusual. Up ahead, train tracks cut through the white landscape. Suddenly, the bear heard a strange sound, a low, creaking groan. It lumbered closer and saw that a section of the track had collapsed under the weight of ice. Just then, the distant whistle of a train echoed through the valley. The bear turned its head and saw the train approaching fast. With a deep growl, the bear moved onto the tracks and began pushing large tree branches and chunks of snow into the gap, trying to block the danger. The train's bright headlight appeared through the snowfall, and the driver, spotting the bear, pulled the emergency brakes. The train screeched and came to a halt just inches from disaster. As the driver stepped out to inspect, he realized the bear had saved him from derailing. But the bear, satisfied with its work, simply looked at the man once, then vanished back into the snowy forest, leaving only its massive paw prints behind. Daniel's jaw tightened as murmurs spread through the crowd. Sophia continued, "A true gentleman knows that respect is the greatest currency. And a strong woman knows when to walk away from an investment that no longer serves her." With that, she reached into her clutch, pulled out a black card, and paid the bill herself. Then, she turned to Daniel with a composed smile. "Consider this my final gift to you." The room erupted into whispers and admiration as Sophia walked out with her head held high. That night, she didn't just leave the party, she left the life she no longer needed, ready to build her own empire. And her next move? That was something no one saw coming. As Sophia exited the grand hall, the cool night air greeted her, refreshing and full of promise. She stepped into a waiting car, dialing a number on her phone. "It's time," she said, her voice calm yet resolute. Within days, news headlines buzzed with the shocking announcement: Sophia had launched her own business empire, backed by powerful investors who admired her strength and independence. Her company, Phoenix Enterprises, symbolized rebirth, resilience, and reinvention. Meanwhile, Daniel found himself in a storm of negative press. Clients withdrew contracts, and business partners distanced themselves. His once glorified reputation crumbled under the weight of his own arrogance. Sophia, on the other hand, flourished. Her first gala as CEO was grander than anything she had ever attended with Daniel. Dressed in an exquisite gown, she raised a toast to new beginnings, surrounded by allies who respected her. That night, she realized something powerful: walking away wasn't just an end, it was the beginning of something greater. Months passed, and Sophia's success continued to soar. With her company expanding into multiple industries, she became a force to be reckoned with in the business world. Media outlets hailed her as an inspiration, and young entrepreneurs sought her mentorship. One evening, as she sat in her high-rise office, overlooking the city that once seemed so intimidating, she received an unexpected visitor, Daniel. His demeanor had changed, the arrogance had faded, replaced by something that almost resembled humility. "I came to apologize," he admitted, his voice softer than she had ever heard before. "I was wrong about everything." Sophia regarded him carefully before responding. "Apologies don't erase actions, Daniel. Growth does." He nodded, understanding that she had outgrown him in ways he never imagined. Without another word, he turned and left, leaving Sophia with a quiet sense of closure. That night, she walked onto the balcony, the city lights twinkling like stars beneath her feet. She had built something for herself, something no one could take away. And as she sipped her wine, she smiled, because for the first time in her life, she was truly free. As the months turned into a year, Sophia continued expanding her influence. She launched charitable foundations supporting women entrepreneurs, mentoring young women who faced similar struggles. Her empire grew beyond just business, it became a movement of empowerment. One evening, she received an invitation to a prestigious business summit, where global leaders gathered to discuss the future of innovation and industry. To her surprise, Daniel was also on the guest list. Dressed in a stunning midnight blue gown, Sophia arrived at the event with confidence. As she mingled with influential figures, she noticed Daniel standing alone near the bar. He looked different, aged, more reserved. Their eyes met, and he approached her cautiously. "You've really made a name for yourself," he said, his tone genuinely respectful. Sophia smiled. "Yes, I have." There was no malice in her voice, only certainty. She had no desire for revenge, nor did she need validation. She had moved beyond the past. As the night continued, Sophia spoke on stage, sharing her journey of resilience, strength, and independence. The audience hung on to her every word, inspired by her transformation. She was no longer just Daniel's ex-wife, she was a force of her own. That night, as she looked around at the powerful figures who now considered her an equal, she realized that her story wasn't just about leaving the past behind. It was about forging a future that no one, not even Daniel, could define for her. And with that, Sophia knew, her journey was far from over. It was only the beginning of something even greater. Continue story. ChatGPT said. Sophia's journey of self-discovery and empowerment had only just begun. As Phoenix Enterprises continued to soar, so did the influence of its CEO. Sophia had become more than a business mogul, she had become a beacon of inspiration for women everywhere. Her story was shared in boardrooms, classrooms, and even living rooms as an example of resilience and the power of self-worth. Yet, as she grew, so did the challenges. The weight of leadership often felt heavy, and the demands of being at the forefront of an empire tested her in ways she had never imagined. She learned the hard way that success was not always glamorous, and every victory came with its own set of sacrifices. One evening, as Sophia sat in her office, reviewing the latest quarterly reports, her assistant knocked on the door and handed her a letter. It was a formal invitation to an exclusive gala hosted by one of the world's most influential figures, Vikram Rao, a self-made billionaire whose empire rivaled her own. Sophia had heard of him, of course. Vikram was known for his sharp mind, charisma, and cutthroat business tactics. His reputation preceded him, and the idea of meeting him intrigued her. But more than that, it was a test. She knew that entering his world meant playing a new game, one she hadn't fully mastered yet. As the gala approached, Sophia found herself in front of her mirror, adjusting her attire. She had chosen a deep crimson dress, a color that symbolized power, confidence, and a touch of rebellion. Her reflection stared back at her, strong, self-assured, yet still vulnerable beneath the surface. For a moment, she allowed herself a rare moment of introspection. Was she ready for this next chapter? Could she truly stand toe-to-toe with someone like Vikram? When she arrived at the gala, the atmosphere was as grand as she'd imagined. The ballroom was filled with the world's most influential businesspeople, each of them dressed to the nines and engaging in strategic conversations. The air was thick with ambition, but beneath the surface, a certain tension lingered. These were not just wealthy individuals, they were power players, each vying for a position of dominance. Sophia moved through the crowd with grace, engaging in conversations, making connections, and showcasing the poise that had become her trademark. Her confidence was undeniable, and it wasn't long before she caught the attention of Vikram himself. Vikram, standing tall with a commanding presence, approached her with a measured smile. He was everything his reputation suggested, sharp, calculating, and charismatic. His eyes, however, held something more, an intense curiosity, as if he were sizing her up. "Sophia," he said, his voice smooth yet piercing. "I've heard much about you. Phoenix Enterprises has been making waves." Sophia returned his smile, unfazed. "The winds of change can be unpredictable, Mr. Rao. But they tend to carry us to places we never imagined." Vikram chuckled, clearly amused. "A fitting answer. I admire that. Tell me, what's next for you? You've already built an empire. What's your next move?" Sophia's mind raced, but she met his gaze with unwavering calm. "The next move, Mr. Rao, is to ensure that my empire not only survives but thrives. I'm not interested in just dominating the market, I want to redefine it. I believe there's a place for innovation that doesn't sacrifice integrity." Vikram seemed to consider her words carefully. "Integrity is a luxury few can afford," he said with a slight smirk. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Perhaps. But I believe in creating a world where it's not just a luxury, it's the standard." The conversation shifted from business to more personal topics, but the underlying tension never completely dissolved. Both of them were sizing each other up, gauging whether the other was a threat, an ally, or simply someone to be conquered. As the evening wore on, Vikram proposed a business partnership, a chance for Sophia to expand Phoenix Enterprises into a new frontier, one that could propel both of them to even greater heights. His proposal was tempting. But Sophia knew that to partner with Vikram, she would have to navigate a world of ruthless competition, manipulative tactics, and a lack of transparency. She would need to decide if the price of his partnership was worth the cost of her values. Sophia spent the next few days reflecting on the offer. She knew that business was not about making easy choices, it was about making the right ones, even when they were hard. After much deliberation, she declined Vikram's offer, choosing instead to chart her own course. She understood that true power came from creating her own path, not following someone else's. In the weeks that followed, Sophia focused on expanding Phoenix Enterprises on her own terms. She made strategic acquisitions, built alliances with like-minded leaders, and cemented her reputation as a visionary. Her brand, now synonymous with empowerment and innovation, continued to disrupt industries and inspire a new generation of entrepreneurs. But the challenges were far from over. As her influence grew, so did the scrutiny. The media, once in awe of her rise, now questioned her every move. Competitors sought to undermine her success, and even old friends began to turn their backs. Sophia, however, remained unfazed. She had already weathered the storm of public opinion once before, and she was ready to do it again. This time, she was stronger. She had nothing to prove to anyone but herself. One day, as she stood on the rooftop of her office building, overlooking the city that had once seemed so daunting, Sophia reflected on everything she had accomplished. She had built an empire, but more importantly, she had built herself. The road had been long, filled with obstacles and setbacks, but every challenge had only fueled her determination to rise higher. And as the sun set over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and orange, Sophia smiled. The world had yet to see the full extent of what she was capable of, and she was ready to show them, one bold move at a time. Sophia's decision to build her empire on her own terms was not one she made lightly, but it was one that solidified her as a force to be reckoned with in the business world. Her determination to forge ahead without compromise made her a symbol of resilience, a leader who was shaping her own destiny and challenging the traditional rules of the game. As the months passed, Phoenix Enterprises continued to grow at an exponential rate, moving into new markets and industries. Sophia's ability to think outside the box and take calculated risks paid off. Her innovative approaches to sustainability, technology, and social entrepreneurship began to set new standards for corporate responsibility, attracting not only investors but a loyal customer base that admired her commitment to making a difference. But with great success came greater challenges. Her influence was now undeniable, and not everyone was pleased with how quickly she had risen. Her competitors, who had once dismissed her as a passing threat, were now watching her every move with growing concern. They had underestimated her, and now they were scrambling to keep up. One such competitor was Lyle Westbrook, the CEO of Westbrook Industries, a massive conglomerate that dominated several of the markets Sophia was now eyeing. Lyle was an old-school businessman, a master of mergers and acquisitions, and someone who believed that the only way to succeed was to crush anyone who dared to challenge his authority. When news broke that Westbrook Industries was making a move to acquire one of Sophia's key partners, it was clear that Lyle was aiming to undermine her empire. At first, Sophia considered the possibility of simply acquiring the company herself, but she soon realized that a more direct confrontation was needed. This was no longer just about business, it was about proving that she wasn't afraid to stand up to those who sought to diminish her achievements. Sophia called an emergency meeting with her inner circle, her trusted advisors, financial experts, and legal team. As they sat around the conference table, she laid out her plan to counter Lyle's move. It was bold, risky, and unconventional, but Sophia had never been one to shy away from a challenge. "We're going to make this acquisition impossible for him," she said, her voice calm yet filled with resolve. "We're going to tie up every angle, lock down every deal, and create a roadblock that Lyle won't be able to navigate." Her team was skeptical at first. Lyle Westbrook was known for his ruthlessness, and few had dared to cross him. But Sophia's confidence was contagious, and soon they were all in agreement. They would outsmart him at his own game. Days turned into weeks as the legal and financial teams worked tirelessly to execute the plan. They formed alliances with other companies that Lyle had overlooked, creating a network of support that would make any attempt to acquire the company nearly impossible. At the same time, Sophia used her media influence to subtly sway public opinion, portraying Lyle's tactics as outdated and aggressive, while positioning Phoenix Enterprises as the future of business. As the battle intensified, the media began to take notice. Headlines across the country pitted the two CEOs against each other, painting Sophia as the underdog who had taken on the establishment. Public sentiment began to shift in her favor, and soon, even the investors who had once been hesitant to back her were rallying behind her. Finally, after weeks of tense negotiations and strategic moves, Lyle's efforts came to a grinding halt. His acquisition of the company was blocked, and his reputation took a significant hit. Sophia had not only protected her empire, but she had done so with grace and intelligence, proving once again that she was a leader who knew how to navigate the complexities of the corporate world without compromising her values. The victory, however, was bittersweet. Sophia had once again proven her strength, but she had also been reminded of the harsh realities of the business world. It was a world where power plays, manipulation, and ruthless competition were the norm. Yet, even in the face of such adversity, Sophia had emerged victorious. It was a testament to her unwavering belief in herself and her vision. As the dust settled, Sophia took a moment to reflect on everything she had accomplished. Phoenix Enterprises was stronger than ever, and she had gained the respect of even her harshest critics. But more than that, she had proven to herself that there was nothing she couldn't overcome. She had built something that was hers, something that was not defined by anyone else's expectations, but by her own dreams and values. One evening, as she sat in her office overlooking the city, she received a message from her mentor, Anjali Kapoor. Anjali had been a guiding force in Sophia's life since the early days of Phoenix Enterprises, offering wisdom and advice whenever needed. The message simply read, "The world is watching, but never forget why you started. Your journey is yours alone." Sophia smiled as she read the message. She had come a long way from the woman who once walked away from an unfulfilling marriage and a life dictated by others' expectations. Now, she was a woman who defined her own path, empowered by every challenge she had faced and every lesson she had learned. The world was indeed watching, but Sophia knew that the real work had only just begun. She had built an empire, but her true legacy would be the lives she changed along the way, the women she mentored, the communities she uplifted, and the future she had helped shape. As she gazed out the window, the city lights shimmering below, Sophia knew that the best was yet to come. She was just getting started, and the world had yet to witness the full extent of her power. Sophia's influence continued to expand, and with each new achievement, she realized that her vision for the future was becoming a reality. Phoenix Enterprises was no longer just a company, it had become a movement. People from all walks of life, particularly women, saw her as a living example that anything was possible with determination, grit, and self-belief. Her philanthropic work also flourished. She established several initiatives to support women entrepreneurs, offering mentorship, funding, and resources to help them launch and grow their businesses. The Foundation for Empowerment, as it came to be known, became a global force, with hundreds of women coming through its doors each year, eager to learn from the woman who had built an empire from nothing. The media buzzed with stories of her accomplishments. News outlets painted her as the modern-day business icon. She was the face of resilience, the proof that success could be achieved on your own terms. But as much as Sophia enjoyed the recognition, she had always known that her legacy wasn't about the accolades or the fame. It was about the lives she touched and the ripple effect of her actions. One morning, as Sophia was preparing for an international summit, she received an unexpected invitation, a letter from her mother, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. The letter was brief, but its words cut through her like a sharp blade. "I'm proud of you. I hope one day you'll forgive me for not being the mother you needed." Sophia felt a knot form in her chest. She had never fully come to terms with her relationship with her mother. She'd grown up in a home where love was conditional, where emotional support was scarce, and where the expectations were always more about image than genuine care. It had shaped who she was, for better or worse, but it had also left deep scars. Her mind raced. She hadn't heard from her mother since her marriage to Daniel ended, and the last conversation they'd had been filled with disappointment and judgment. Sophia had felt like a disappointment to her mother for years. She had never been the kind of daughter her mother had hoped for, and that had always lingered between them, like a wall that kept them from truly connecting. Yet, the letter had softened something in her. There was an honesty in her mother's words that she hadn't expected. "I'm proud of you." The phrase echoed in her mind, and she felt the tension inside her begin to ease. Could it be possible that after all these years, her mother had finally recognized her worth? Sophia took a deep breath, pushing aside the waves of emotion. She had no intention of dwelling on the past. She had worked too hard to build the life she had now. But something about the letter stirred her curiosity, about what reconciliation could look like, if it were ever possible. Perhaps this was the first step toward healing a relationship that had always felt fractured. Days passed, and the invitation remained on her desk, unopened. Sophia couldn't decide what to do. It was tempting to ignore it altogether, to continue focusing on the empire she was building, the new partnerships she was forging, the world she was shaping. But at the same time, she knew that ignoring the past wouldn't make it go away. After much contemplation, Sophia made a decision. She picked up the phone and dialed the number on the letter, feeling the weight of the moment settle in her chest. Her mother's voice, though distant and unsure, answered on the other end. The conversation that followed was tentative at first, filled with long silences and awkward pauses. But as they spoke, the years of distance seemed to fade away, replaced by a shared understanding that things could be different. They weren't going to fix everything in one conversation, but for the first time in years, they were communicating openly. "I've spent so much of my life trying to prove myself," Sophia said quietly. "But I think I finally understand something. I'm not just trying to prove myself to others. I was trying to prove something to you." Her mother's voice softened. "Sophia, I'm sorry. I thought I was doing what was best for you. But I see now. I see the strength in you. You've become the woman I always knew you could be. And maybe I wasn't the mother you needed me to be." Sophia took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those words land gently in her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt like she wasn't carrying the burden of her mother's expectations on her shoulders. There was something liberating in that realization. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her, and in its place was a newfound sense of peace. As the conversation drew to a close, Sophia knew that the path ahead wasn't going to be easy. But the healing had begun. There was still work to be done, and she didn't expect it to happen overnight. But for the first time in years, she felt a sense of possibility. Perhaps, with time, they could rebuild a relationship, not one based on perfection or expectations, but on understanding and acceptance. Sophia smiled to herself as she ended the call. She wasn't the same woman who had walked away from her past years ago. She was stronger, wiser, and more at peace with who she was. And the best part? She was in control of her own narrative. The following week, as she stood at the podium at the International Summit, addressing leaders from across the globe, she couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. She was no longer just a businesswoman, she was a force for change, a symbol of empowerment. Her words resonated with the audience, her story of resilience inspiring countless individuals to take control of their own lives and pursue their own dreams. As the event concluded, Sophia stepped off the stage to find a message waiting for her. It was from her mother: "I'm proud of the woman you've become. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey." Sophia felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from sadness, but from the weight of something more beautiful: closure. She had truly moved beyond the shadows of her past, and in doing so, she had become the woman she had always been meant to be. And with that, Sophia knew that the horizon was limitless. The future was hers to shape, and nothing, nothing at all, could stand in her way.